later. Is there really such a thing as truth when it comes to the most important things in life, or are we just left to our own opinions? Can we really know for certain why we exist, if there is a purpose to life, or what happens after death? Can we know if there is a God, or how we are supposed to live our lives? We all live our lives day by day, not knowing what will happen next, but that is what gives our lives joy and meaning. So not knowing is a gift. What would we do if we knew everything that happened or will happen? The world that we know today would be a very different place. So what is truth anyway? According to Webster Dictionary, truth is the property of being in accord with fact or reality. When it comes to faith, morals, and life's meaning, the biggest obstacle to finding truth is relativism. I've never heard of relativism. What is it? Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, now Pope Benedict XVI, identified relativism as the greatest problem of our time. Relativism is the idea that there is no universal, absolute truth, but that truth differs from person to person and culture to culture. In other words, truth is relative to what each person or culture thinks. Most people in today's society are moral and religious relativists. They think that only what can be scientifically verified should be regarded as objective fact, but that everything else is subjective opinion. Relativism is so widespread that Ratzinger describes its predominance in our day as the dictatorship of relativism. What's the problem with relativism? It is not difficult to show the problems of relativism, but because it is rarely scrutinized, it is widely accepted. Since it has worked its way into the fabrics of society, it is simply assumed to be true. If you were to take one hard look at relativism, it reveals that it does not work in real life. How is relativism flawed as a philosophy? What makes relativism is that it is absolutely true for everyone, that nothing is absolutely true for everyone. This claim cannot be true because it contradicts itself. If it's fine for everyone that nothing is true for everyone, then the statement, nothing is true for everyone, also isn't true for everyone. I can see how it might be bad philosophy, but is relativism really hurting anyone? At first glance, relativism seems harmless or even helpful in a multicultural world. But Pope Benedict XVI is right. Relativism is the greatest problem of our time. The list of its bad effects is potentially endless. Relativism robs us of a sense of meaning. According to Pope Benedict XVI, relativism is a spiritual desert spreading, an interior emptiness, an unnamed fear, a quiet sense of despair. This emptiness separates us from life's most profound realities. This is, perhaps, its most tragic effect. Science can answer questions about the matter of the universe, but not questions about its meaning. Fundamental questions such as why do I exist can be answered only by philosophy and theology. Because of this, the relativists would say that the answer to these questions aren't truths to be discovered, but ideas that each person should make up for himself. Young people ask what the meaning of life is, who God is, and how are they to live, and are left to make up their own answers. It is no wonder that almost 15% of teens had seriously considered suicide, and almost 7% had actually tried it. Relativism undermines the right to life. Some will claim that there is nothing wrong with abortion. Firstly, abortion is legal because of how a relativist society comes to see human rights. When a society acknowledges that human rights are based on objective principles like dignity of the person and natural law, those rights are secure. But a society that does not recognize moral assertions as if objective facts puts those rights on shaky ground. Secondly, abortion is legal because of how a relativist society views human wrongs. One of the central arguments of pro-abortion groups is implied by the popular name of their movement, pro-choice. They claim that abortion should be legal in the name of freedom of choice, not necessarily because it's a moral decision. Abortion was made legal by relativism and probably remains legal because of it. Relativism destroys faith. It seems that most people today are under the false impression that if something is scientifically verifiable, it is objectively true, whereas everything else is only subjectively true. Such a belief reduces God from the status of actual living being to personal sentiment that can legitimately vary from person to person. Because of this demotion, relativists are able to say things like, Jesus is God for you, but Vishnu is God for someone else. Many are convinced that relativism is the glue that holds a pluralistic society together, and that without it we dissolve into intolerant, warring clans. Naturally, arguments are rejected even if they seem logical.
What is tolerance? Tolerance has been taught from a very young age. We are taught to tolerate views and opinions that differ from ours. Relativism has turned tolerance into disagreeing with someone and being called intolerant. There is no room for opinion. Has relativism helped society? Relativists are some of the most intolerant people in the world due to the fact that they do not believe in absolute truth. Adolf Hitler was a relativist, and a perfect example of intolerant nature, i.e., killing the Jews. Relativists believe in ideologies with equal value. In essence, they are saying there is no right or wrong. Intolerance is not disagreeing or speaking out. It is rather forceful actions to push for consequences based out of disagreement. Relativists do not tolerate the ones they disagree with. Is absolutism the greatest cause of intolerance? There is an average of 1 billion Muslims in the world, and a majority of them live peaceful lives. A small minority of them are suicide bombers, and the peaceful ones are the primary victims. People across various religions have committed disgusting acts of violence, but the violence does not stem from absolutism, rather the interpretation of the teachings in a radical view. Absolutism is the claim to know the truth of God. Mother Teresa was an absolutist. She believed that Christianity had the right answer in terms of the divinity of Christ, but she did not blow herself up. Her faith motivated her to live a life of service. How has Christianity contributed to a society of tolerance? Christianity teaches each person that they are of great worth and dignity. It is believed that tolerance is the right of the individual. This can be traced back to Jesus' teachings. Without Christianity, there would still be slaves fighting in the Colosseum for all to see. School curriculum does not shed enough light on the importance of Christianity. It is now seen as oppressive and intolerant to other views. Once again, there is no room for opinion. Christian culture shared its fruit with the world and changed history.
Was Jesus tolerant? Jesus was the most tolerant man to live. He faced torture and prayed for his executioner's forgiveness. He instructs us to serve, forgive, and love our enemies. But isn't the belief that all non-Christians go to hell the ultimate and final intolerance? The Catholic Church does not teach this. People who aren't Christian but do their best to follow God can get into heaven. God is fair and just and wants everyone in heaven. Christianity is the surest way that God has revealed for someone to arrive safely in heaven. What does motivate authentic tolerance? Relativism is not the cure for intolerance because it will never be accepted by people with strong religious beliefs who are intolerant. The most tolerant person recognizes that there are objective religious and ethical facts. Every religious leader needs to be a realist. Even people with less power need to become a realist too, so that they don't oppress anyone who disagrees with them. Why do we need certainty about matters of faith and morals? The more important something is, the more certain we have to be about it. Faith and morals are very important, so we should all agree on the same morals. Faith is the meaning of life, and morals is how we should live. Only a high degree of surety can give us a firm sense of purpose. I'm a scientist. When I talk about truth, I'm talking about science. You're talking about philosophy and religion. We're speaking on two totally different planes. We can't even debate. Truth means being in accord with fact or reality. We find truth by observing data and making logical conclusions about it. Information about God has to do with theology. There's a difference between data you can put under a microscope and philosophical data, but that doesn't make one more reliable than the other. Great minds throughout history deduce that there is a God we can't see. I guess I'm just skeptical of things that can't be scientifically verified. Skeptics are people who think we can never know anything spiritual with surety. They refuse to recognize anything immaterial as evidence for truth. They reject claims even if there is enough evidence to support it. They have foundational trust issues. So you Christians think that the rest of the world is flat out wrong. Saying you're right about God doesn't mean others are wrong. The Catholic Church claims to be right, but doesn't say others are wrong. Religious leaders are in dialogue and working together for the common good when possible. We are all on the same team to be with God. Religions are the stories of our searches for God. Doesn't it seem to limit God in all of his vastness to try to box him into one faith like Christians do? God is love. Him becoming a human and dying for us makes sense only in the logic of love. Nothing is as vast and profound as love. No other faith makes a better claim as to who or what God is. If God is love, He made it clear and easy for us to grasp when He reveals Himself. But in the end, doesn't diversity strengthen us? And won't that be weakened if everyone thinks as you do about faith and morals? Diversity is a great strength. Relativism destroys authentic diversity. A world that mandates unity through uniformity to relativism is far from diverse. Everyone would be pent on the same central belief of relativism. Diversity is when we strongly disagree with respect and charity. We don't need to be united in relativism to be united in brotherhood.
How can I know the truth about moral issues? We know what is right or wrong through natural law. This law isn't taught, it's just something we know. For example, we know from a young age killing people is wrong. That doesn't need to be taught. Relativism thinks that this type of law can be destroyed, but it's in our DNA. It cannot be removed. Isn't relativism just about going beyond antiquated moral views? The first problem with this line of thought is believing that moral views can be obsolete. This is wrong. Moral laws have either always been right or always been wrong. Just as we grow, we learn which ones are which. Also, relativism does not aim to grow. It only wants to destroy what has already been built. How can I come to know the truth in matters of faith? Faith is special in that it's not a truth you can find with reason alone. It requires a leap of faith. When you make decisions in regards to faith, what makes the decision is your will, not your research. To believe whether or not God exists cannot be done by reason alone. You need to be willing to believe in His existence, even if it cannot be proven. What rational support is there for belief in God? When you look at a book, you know it has an author, even if you cannot see the author right in front of you. When you see a painting, you know that it had to have been made, that it couldn't have just suddenly come into existence. Following this, we can look at the Big Bang and the resulting universe, and see that there must have been someone that started it.